Alright, check this out. You see these two sound effects? I want to use these in my project. To do that, I need to first create a new folder in my project. Let's call this sound effects. And then next we're gonna import these two files into our Unity project. Now Unity accepts two kinds of audio files. First you can import MP3 files, and next you can also import WAV files, which is what I did right here. Both of these files are WAV files. Now I'm just gonna grab both of these files and drag them into our project, into the folder we just created. And upon importing them, Unity turns these WAV files into audio clips. As you can see, these two files are now converted to audio clips. Now I have these two files. I can close this. Now before I start showing you how to use this, let's move our player character right here. Then delete this. Okay, so we have two audio files. The first one of them is a sound effect, an explosion sound effect, and the other is a song, a background music. Now I want to use my explosion sound effects. I want it to play whenever an enemy is killed, whenever an enemy is destroyed by the player's bullets. On the other hand, I want our background music to consistently play throughout the gameplay until it is stopped, aka until the player character is destroyed by colliding with an enemy object. So let's first start with an explosion sound. Let's first start with implementing our explosion sound effect. We want this to play whenever an enemy is destroyed, so we will add this sound effect to our enemy prefabs. So going back, let's get into our prefabs folder, select enemy. Now to use audio files and stuff, we need a new component, a specific component. You can write audio and you will see an audio source. Add this to our enemy prefab. As you can see, we have our settings right here. And at start we have a slot called audio resource. This is where we're gonna put our audio file. So let's select our explosion sound effect. There we go. Now we will trigger this audio source via code in our enemy behavior script. So let's get to that. We're not going to our enemy manager script, but instead our individual enemy scripts. First, we need to introduce our We need to introduce our enemy object's audio source into our enemy script. We need to create a reference, and we'll do that by writing private audio source. There we go. Now this is an empty variable. We need to explain what the audio source variable is, and we're going to do that in the start method by writing audio source get component audio source. So we are pretty much telling the script that the audio source variable is our audio source component. But anyway, I think the only thing we need to do, let me fix this. Okay, the only thing we need to do is go here to the if statement where our enemy collides with a bullet, And after we destroy both the enemy object and the bullet object, we're gonna write audio source play. So we're gonna play the explosion sound effects when the enemy is destroyed. Saving this, let's go back to our editor and test this out to see if we did the right thing. That did not work. Hold on, what? Oh, hold on. Oh, right. I forgot about this. In our audio source component, we have a setting called play on awake, which makes it so our explosion sound effect is played at the start of runtime when it is disabled. Now let's try again. Okay, working good so far. Now I'm gonna send a bullet to one of the enemies to see if the explosion sound effect will play. No. Why isn't it not? Why isn't it working? Will it work if I do this? If I have to guess, we need to play the explosion sound effect before we destroy the enemy object. Because when we destroy the enemy object, we don't have a audio source component to play with. Let's see if that's the issue. Come on. No, still not working. Why? Give me a second. Will this work? Nope. Let's try something else. And will this work? Oh, thank God. Okay, it's working now. Let me explain what I did. Now, how do I explain this? So the problem earlier is this. Let me revert this a little bit. Okay, this is what we did earlier. So, our explosion sound effect is played. It is triggered. But as soon as it is triggered, our enemy object is destroyed anyway. So our explosion sound effect is triggered, but only a tiny bit of it is played before our enemy is destroyed. Now let me go back to what I did. So play clip at points is a method from the audio source class. So play clip at points basically plays an audio source, an audio clip, which we stated as our audio sources clip, at a given position in our scene, which we specified is transform.position. This works because play clip at points creates a temporary audio source. Also, I had to look this up online. Here's the page. But anyway, now that we have our explosion sound effect done, let's implement our other sound effects, which is the background music. Now I think I will put this inside the player character so that we can make so the background music can continue playing in a loop until the game ends, which is when our player object collides with a enemy object. So let's create a let's create a second audio source, and this time it will be for our player object. This time we're gonna leave play on awake turned on. And in addition, we want to turn on this loop setting. Because if I remember correctly, or this audio clip is only like 1 minute long. I don't know where it says this. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, it's just 1.5 minutes. So we want this to play on repeat. That's why we want this loop setting to be turned on. Putting this in our audio resource slots. Now we'll start working with our player controller script. But first let's check if the background music is playing when we start testing our project. Cool. Now, just like we did with our enemy script, we'll create a reference to the player object's audio source. Private audio source. Let's again call it audio source. Now, in reality, we don't really need to do all this code. I mean, we don't need to play with our audio source in the script. The background music will automatically stop when the player touches a enemy object. So when an enemy object collides with a player object, the player object will be destroyed, and with that, our audio source will be destroyed. But I still want to show you how to stop an audio clip via code. We're gonna go to our onCollisionEnter, and this is the part where a collision with an enemy destroy our player object. At the start of this, before the destroy methods, we're gonna write audio source and I think that was it. But as I said, we don't really need this. Our background music will disappear with our player object, but still this is here, just to show you guys. So let's test this real quick. I'll move my player here. Ooh. Maybe I should move it just a little bit down. Okay, the background music is playing now. And it's that simple. But now that I think about it, I want to do something else. So, when a bullet and enemy object collides, an explosion sound effect plays. But when an enemy object collides with the player object, the explosion doesn't happen. I want to add an explosion sound effect to our player-enemy collision as well. Let's go to our player behavior script. Now to do this, we don't need to add another audio source, but instead we need to reference a specific audio clip, an audio file in our script. So we'll write public, instead of audio source, we'll write audio clip, and then we're gonna call it explosion sound effects. Now let's go to our editor and set what this variable is gonna be. Going to our player character. Here you can see that there is a slot for explosion sound effects. Let's go to our sound effects, pick the explosion, And there we go. Now our player behavior scripts can make use of our explosion sound effect right here. Going back to our player behavior script, we want to use our play clip at point method again. So going here, we'll write audio source play clip at points. Then instead of writing audio source clip, instead of that we're gonna write explosion sound effect. And then transform position. And I think that's it. But anyway, let's save our scripts and head to our editor. Cool.